How to make a Flappy Bird game. I want to teach you some. As you can see, this is the Unity project. So I have opened this game from internet that I found. It's a Flappy Bird game. I click, it flies, and I get points, and when I hit the pipes I lose. There's a score, there's a high score or best here, restart buttons, and things like that. So I press the restart button. I want to recreate this game on Unity. So at the start you can see that I have these Flappy Bird sprites, which I have ripped them myself. First of all, we have the sample scene. We have a main camera. This is our camera of the game. This is hierarchy window. You can open it from window, general, and hierarchy here. And we need game and scene and project. This is project. As you can see, my files are shown here. This is assets. This is scenes. This file, sample scene, is the game that we have now. And this is the game window. We can click and drag it elsewhere. Because I want to see the game itself, I will drag it and put it here. I go back to assets folder. This is my sprites, and this is the scene. So in the scene we have main camera. You can see the background is blue. First of all, I want to make a game object. Right click to the object, sprites, and I insert a square. As you can see, there's a square here. So a square is now in the hierarchy, like in the sample scene. I press Ctrl S and save the project. This is duplicated, I delete it. Okay, so what we're gonna do? Also, you can create this sprite game object, like you can right click and create an empty object. This is game object. I click it, I press F2 for rename, or right click and rename it to player, or you can name it bird. I named it player, and we have transform here component. It's the default. You have it there always. I click on the player here. No, this is square. I delete the square, and this is the player. First of all, we have the transform component, and we have these tools here for working with the scene. This is tools. Hand tool, you can click and drag around the scene. This is move tool. Right now the player is selected. There is no sprite on it, so you can see it. You can only see these gizmos. You can click and drag your player around. You can see that the transform changes when you move around this object. The X position of this object. First of all, let me to insert the sprite so we can see it better. This is the transform component. I click add component and a sprite renderer here. This component renders the sprite, but right now it's empty, it's none. So in my Flappy QWERT folder, I drag this bird sprite, which is PNG, and I drag it on the sprite. You can see now the bird is visible. Zoom in by scrolling in. I can click here and pixels per unit. When you click on this image, this is a file. We have pixels per unit, which is the size of the bird. Let's put it on 50 for now. And here there's blinder. Blinder means it's a little, what do you say? I don't remember. We set it on point. It makes the sprite sharp. And I click here, right? Not inside of this window. I click here and it asks for saving. You apply it, and as you can see, the image is now sharp because it's a pixel art game. This is this, and now I can click on the player, which is the bird. So we have the move tool, and we want to see how transform component works. This is position. You can click and drag this X here and change the X position of your game object. This is a game object now, this player. So this is axis X, if I'm right, and this is Y axis, up and down, because it's a 2D game. You can see the scene by clicking on the 2D. Now it's 3D, but our game is 2D, so we click it onto 2D. As you can see, our camera here, the transform is 0, 0, and the Z is -10. Like if I click and make it 3D in the scene, I can click the player and change the Z. It's the depth, kind of. I click it and set it to 0. It doesn't change on the game view, but the Z is important because it makes the sprites go on the top or bottom. Control S, save. I click on the 2D, makes the scene 2D. Okay, so we change the positions here, and we can click the move tool and move the player by axis, left and right, up and down. This is X, this is Y, and this handle here, which is blue, it will change the both positions. But if you want to lock and change a specific axis, you can click these gizmos, arrows, up and down. The next one is rotation. When I change the X rotation, You see it rotates like a 3D movement, but we don't want to change this in a 2D game. So I set it to 0. And when you change the y-axis, again, it's like a 3D rotation, which we don't want it here. We set it to 0. But the z-axis of rotation is important in this 2D game. Like when I change it, as you can see, the bird rotates. You know, I click it and set it to 0. And we have tools here. This is move tool. Next one is rotate tool. With rotate tool, you have these gizmos, which you can click and rotate your sprite. Control Z for undo. And this one is y-axis. Control Z undo. And the important one is the blue axis, which is the z-axis. You can drag left or right. Control Z undo and save. So we have shortcut keys on keyboard, which is important to use. They are very easy. QWERT. Q is move tool. W is the move tool, and E is the rotate tool. Like again, QWERT. The next one on the transform component is scale. As you can see, it's 1 by 1 by 1. So when I change the X value of a scale, as you can see, it grows like the width of the sprite expands. And when it becomes minus, it will flip. Control Z undo. And the Y value changes the height of the scale, and the minus flips vertically. I click it and input 0. No, I input 1, because the scale should be 1 by 1. And the Z doesn't show because this is not a 3D object. Like if we had a 3D object here, let me make a 3D object, make a cube, move it here, and we should go to a 3D view. As you can see, when I change the Z value, the depth of the cube changes. We don't want this here. We go back to 2D mode. So this was transform, and we have the tool here, which is scale. I can change the values again by these handles, and this one for both of them. So undo, and this is the scale one, and this is the lock, like enable constraint proportions. This means that when I enable this, if I change X, all of them will change relatively. Like if all of them are 1 and I set this to 2, it will grow. Like this handle here does the same. It will grows or shrinks the game object by relatively to other values. I set it to 1 on the keyboard QWE. R. So we have this sprite here, and what we want to do next is that the sprite renderer component, which I added by add component. When I click here, the sprite selects, and here. So next thing I want to do is that make this bird fall down. I want to make the bird fall down like in the game. As you can see, it falls down. Next thing is that we add component Rigidbody 2D like this. When I play the game here, this is play and this is pause. As you can see, it falls down. Where is it? I select the player, this is the scene, but it fell down, and the Y is increasingly going down. I select it and input 0, but it doesn't come up because the velocity is too much. I can set it to kinematic, and because we are in the play mode and we are changing the player, this will not be saved, so it's for test. Again, I select the Y and input 0, or I can make it static maybe. Right. When you set the Rigidbody 2D, this is the physics of the player. It doesn't have gravity and it cannot be moved. With kinematic, it can move, but it doesn't have gravity. But in dynamic, it has gravity and it fell down. Again, static 0. I select the move tool and move it up, and again I set it to dynamic and it falls down. So let me write down what have I explained. I have a file here which helps me to track what I'm doing with the tutorial. What have I explained is that we made a new Gameobject. We explained the tools. Which was move and scale and rotation it was. We made a sprite renderer. And we made a Rigidbody 2D. So this was the things I have explained. Let me write down the shortcut. QWERT. And also for the next videos, I would need to know what do I want to record, and I made a Flappy Bird document here on Google Docs, which is a nice way to do things. I make a to-do This is a to-do topic which I usually make, and so for the next videos, what do we want to add for the game? The bird falls down, but when you click, it jumps or flies. So click, jump. When you click, it should jump. Then after that we need a ground object, which is here. When it falls down and collides with the ground, it loses. First of all, we need to make a ground object. After that, when player hits the ground, what happens? We restart the game for losing. For now, we will add more. Restart. And when we have this losing, the bird flies, and we need pipes for the game for sure. After that we need pipe object or prefab. Then when we created the pipe object, we should generate pipes. We should generate pipes. As you can see, when I click, the pipes generate. And after that, we need to at start of the game, first click, then game starts. Like at the start of the game, as you can see, we should click to make the game start, and the pipes are generating and such. At start, first click, game start. Also, before that, we need a text on the game like this: click or touch to start. We need the text so that the player knows he should click or touch so that the game starts. The game starts, you can jump, you fall automatically, the pipes are generating. Then what do we need? After that we need points, like this is 1. We need to have points or a score and text for showing the score. After that, when passes between pipes, when the player passes between the pipes, adds to score. You score when you passes through the pipes, like that. And after that, what do we need? You get points. And this is a lose screen, right? This is a lose screen. Pipe and prefab, generate pipes. We should have a die function or something, or lose function. Lose when player hits pipes or ground. We have the lose here, so we have a lose screen. After that, instead of restarting the game, lose the screen, we should have a restart button and a score showing the score. So we also have higher score too, a score and text. We need high score. We have higher score. When you lose, when the player is pipes or ground, again on losing, if the score is greater than higher score, then the higher score equals to the score. These are the this is the to-do list of things that we need for the next videos that I just wrote down. And we can do it to upgrade the game and make it playable.